welcome to another edition of On the Trail of Delusion, where I try to separate the wheat from the chaff and give you something substantial on the JFK assassination rather than the usual nonsense you find on the internet and on YouTube. So today I have a very, very special guest. It's Judge Burt Griffin, and let me just tell you who Judge Burt Griffin is. Burt Griffin is the author of JFK, Oswald, and Ruby, Politics, Prejudice and Truth, and he also wrote Cities Within a City on changing Cleveland's governance. Let me show you his book. I've got it right here. I've actually bought this book twice, once in print format and once in ebook format. Judge Griffin was assistant counsel to the President's Commission on the Assassination of President Kennedy, who we know as the Warren Commission. He served for many years as a judge in the Common Pleas Court of Cuyahoga County, Ohio. I hope I pronounced that right. And before that, he was a legal aid lawyer. He served as the executive director of the Cleveland Legal Aid Society and national director of the Legal Services Program of the United States Office of Economic Opportunity. Judge Griffin graduated cum laude from Amherst College with a degree in political science and later graduated from Yale Law School. So welcome, Judge Griffin.
Well, thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure to be on here with you.
And so my first question is, where were you when JFK was assassinated?
Well, I was getting on an elevator at lunchtime at the conclusion of lunch in Cleveland, Ohio, going back to my office to go to work in the afternoon. And someone said, the president has been shot. Someone in the elevator said, the president has been shot. I thought, oh my God, this is not possible. This has got to be some right-wing segregationists, because this was a period, as we all, those of us who were alive at that time can remember, this was the fall of November 1963, and there were a number of killings, assassinations of civil rights leaders during this particular period.
Okay, so when were you first notified that you were asked to be on the Warren Commission?
Well, it was late December or perhaps right after the 1st of January. I, at this point, don't remember exactly when, but David Filveroff, a young lawyer whom I knew, who was an assistant to Robert Kennedy, and had been, however, Filveroff had been a young lawyer in Cleveland, and I attended cocktail parties and various things like that with him. And he had been told by Howard Willens at the Warren Commission that they were looking for diversity, and let me say that this is 1963, right. And diversity was not what it is today. There were no women on our staff, but they were looking for geographical and political diversity, and they were also looking for people who had had experience as criminal prosecutors. And I had been in the very early stages of my career. I had been an assistant U.S. attorney in Cleveland handling criminal cases, and Filveroff knew me in that capacity.
So when you arrived in Washington, I mean, what really strikes me about the lawyers, the people who served on the Warren Commission, just how smart they were. A lot of smart people served on the Warren Commission. How did you see it?
Well, I was amazed that I was a part of the group. One of the people had been a year ahead of me at Amherst College, David Slauson. He was a straight-A physics student who had gone on to MIT and started a graduate degree before he decided to become a lawyer. Yes, you're absolutely right. These people were extremely bright.
Let's go into the Warren Commission and just, the critics will say that the Warren Commission, its goals were number one, very political to avoid anything that might draw the United States into a war, and number two, had no interest in anything, finding any other assassin other than Oswald. Can you talk a bit about the goals of the Warren Commission?
Well, the first meeting that we had, which was a staff meeting called together by Chief Justice Warren, and the Chief Justice said to each of us, your only client is the truth. Frankly, I and my colleagues were determined to find a conspiracy. We wanted to be the finders of a conspiracy because we would be national heroes under those circumstances.
And so your area was number five, which was Jack Ruby, and it appears like you had an awful lot of work.
Well, we had an investigation that was the same size as the investigation of Oswald himself. Yes, absolutely. We as Leon Hubert, my partner, and I felt we needed twice the number of people working with us. And
Well, yeah,
go
well, in
ahead.
fact, I mean, I think you say that, Oswald was 24 when he was killed, but Jack Ruby was much older. There's far more to research the life of Jack Ruby.
Absolutely right.
Your workload must have been absolutely huge.
Well, fortunately, we had the FBI and the Secret Service who were conducting investigations, and we were asking them to interview various people. So the basic work that was done for us, the research that was done for us, was done initially by governmental agents, and not simply the FBI and the Secret Service, but the Post Office Department, you name it.
Right. But you and your partner were somewhat suspicious of the FBI.
I'm not sure that I would put it in terms of suspicion. Uh, I knew that the FBI had a reason to conceal for us things that might embarrass them, and uh, and that became apparent early on, and so I don't think it was the FBI in general that we were suspicious of so much as particular investigators who might have some reason to conceal things that would embarrass them.
I mean, I think also your Hubert was somewhat. I don't know if he was disappointed with the FBI or at some point, but he also had some doubts or about what they were doing, or Hoover, certainly, or about Hoover.
Hubert and I had very similar views.
And then also there was a
Well, let me say something from my own experience. As you know, I had been an assistant United States attorney uh, investigating criminal cases in Cleveland, Ohio, before I joined the Warren Commission, and there was a marked difference uh, between my experiences with the FBI agents, and my experiences with the Secret Service. The Secret Service agents that I had worked with were really quite adventuresome. But the FBI agents were completely intimidated by Washington.
right.
And I was struck early on by the fact that every FBI agent referred to J. Edgar Hoover as Mr. Hoover. It was never the boss or anybody else. No nicknames, but it was almost as if they said something to me in Cleveland, Ohio, it would somehow get back to Washington.
Yeah, it was not good to say anything negative about J. Edgar Hoover. Um, so, and Jack Ruby. Now, I have to tell you, I just did this last week. I did a video review of Sylvia Maher's book, Accessories After the Fact, and it's a pretty bad book. And what amazed me about her big section on Jack Ruby was that not once did she mention anti-Semitism. And I
Ah,
thought that's an amazing oversight on her part.
and I wonder if she herself was Jewish or not Jewish.
She was Jewish.
Well, absolutely, because very early on, in fact, immediately when Ruby heard that the president had been shot, uh, he feared that Jews would be blamed for shooting Kennedy. And the reason he feared this, aside from the fact that every everybody who is Jewish has had some experience with anti-Semitism, uh, whether it be major or minor. General Edwin Walker was shot at, as we know later, by Lee Harvey Oswald. The shooting, how was never linked to Oswald, but people believe, in Dallas believe that the Jews were the ones who shot at Walker, and the result was vandalism and other anti-Semitism immediately after the shooting of Walker as an effort to blame Jews for the attempted assassination of Edwin Walker. So that was very much on Ruby's mind from a past experience that had been in April 7 months earlier, had been very vividly a part of, and let me say, he also grew up in Chicago in a period of time when anti-Semitism was rampant. So fear of anti-Semitism was a great worry of Ruby's, and Ruby believed that Jews would be blamed for the assassination of President Kennedy.
Yeah, it was such a big part of his life, and I'm still amazed that she did not see any of that. And even in her index to the Warren Commission, there's not an entry for anti-Semitism uh, on Ruby. So it's just amazing that she of course there were a lot of other problems with her book. It's a really bad book. Let me tell
Well,
you.
as you know, the major theme that Leon Hubert and I ultimately came up with was that yes, Ruby had been motivated by a fear that Jews would be blamed for the assassination,
Yeah,
and
and it's ironic that because he shot Oswald, that in fact the people then thought, oh my God, the Jews were part of the conspiracy. It sort of really backfired on him.
and you know, when Ruby was arrested and first asked by Secret Service agent Forrest Sorrells, Jack, why did you do it? His answer was, I had to show the world a Jew had guts.
Yeah.
So that was his answer initially to why he shot Oswald.
Now, and how much give that answer? I mean, was that just an answer that he said because he shot Oswald on an impulse? Was because he came up with multiple reasons afterwards, as to why he shot Oswald.
I don't think it was a well planned shooting.
Yeah, for sure.
uh, and you know, uh, the night before he shot, this is Oswald shooting, or Ruby shooting Oswald. The night before Ruby shot Oswald, uh, he had a lengthy conversation on the street about 2 o'clock in the morning, uh, involving, uh, interestingly enough, one of his employees who was a striptease dancer, who was dating and ultimately married a Dallas police officer. And
Right.
and in that conversation, the the striptease dancer, who, as I recall, had been born in England, said to Ruby, if this had been happening in England, someone would have shot the assassin right away. They would have. So I think the idea was planted in Ruby's mind that he would be a hero
Right.
to the country if he shot Oswald. But I don't think even uh, as late as Saturday night, and he shot uh, Oswald on Sunday morning. I don't think as late as Saturday night he had conceived of how he was going to, if he had an opportunity, how he was going to shoot Oswald.
Yeah, and he got after he was I mean after he killed Oswald, he got lots of cards and letters in jail from people who were saying, well, what a great job, congratulations.
Absolutely, he was a hero.
Yeah, and I think he thought maybe if I get off, if I get off this charge, I could go around the country as this big hero to everybody.
Absolutely.
And but it didn't work out. I mean, I think well, his lawyer, do you think Jack Ruby could have gotten off with a much lighter sentence had he used another lawyer?
Absolutely do. I'm trying to think of the uh, name of the Texas lawyer that he originally attempted
Well, there
to
was
hire.
Tannehill,
No, not Tara Hill.
Howard,
Howard. Yeah,
Tom Howard.
yeah. Who was a kind of a street lawyer. He represented prostitutes and various other street people, but he knew how to deal with judges in Dallas, and he knew how to deal with juries, and
Right.
he would not have tried the kind of defense that uh, Ruby's lawyer ultimately
Yeah,
handled.
Melvin Belli.
Yeah, Belli was trying to get him completely acquitted, and you know, Tom Howard would have tried to make a deal, and he would plea, he'd enter a plea to a lesser offense, and uh, maybe get a 5 or 6 year prison sentence.
Right, right. Yeah, he probably could have done that. Yeah. Anyways, so one thing about Ruby is how do you think Ruby got into the basement?
Well, that was a major area of inquiry for Leon Hubert and me, and we were looking for all sorts of ways that he might have got in. There was a back entrance off of an alleyway that would possibly get him into the basement. But I think by the time all of the people were investigated, we were satisfied that he came in, got in just the way he said he did. He walked down the Main Street ramp, and nobody stopped him.
For some reason, it's so controversial, and it's not like does it really matter? I mean, I don't know. It's ended up being sort of this big thing, which I think is slightly crazy.
Yes,
And but one of the things that you were involved with was Patrick Dean's testimony
yes,
when he testified before the Warren Commission and the fact that you thought he might have been not telling the complete truth.
yes.
So what happened there?
Patrick Dean be, became the prime witness against Ruby as to what Ruby's motivation might be. However, uh, he claims, and this is true, that he talked with Ruby maybe 5 or 10 minutes after Ruby was arrested, and that he asked Ruby to describe. At this point, I'm not quite clear exactly what his questions were, but in any event, uh, when it came to testify, well, he was he was he was under investigation as a result of that. I'll put it this way: uh, Patrick Dean was in charge of security in the basement.
Right.
So it was his job to keep people like Ruby out of the basement, and he was a primary suspect as a result of that. Uh, it was 2 months after he first interviewed Ruby that he claimed that Ruby said anything about motivation, and he became the primary witness as to Ruby's motivation,
Right.
because Ruby, Dean claimed that Ruby began thinking about shooting Oswald on Friday night before the Sunday when he shot Oswald. But he had never said this to anybody until about 2 months before, 2 months after he allegedly had the conversation. Well,
Right.
it was hard frankly, for Leon Huber and me to believe that something like this would not have been put in writing by him immediately.
Right. Right.
So yes, I seriously doubted Patrick Dean's truthfulness on that.
And so you were, and then he complained that it got all the way back to Warren, right? Or Rankin.
Yes, Rankin.
And so was that why you did not go down to interview Jack Ruby during his testimony?
I think that was one of the reasons, not the only one, but I think that was one of the reasons. I think, quite frankly, and wisely so, uh, the Chief Justice had decided that he was going to interview Ruby, and that made a lot of sense. So, and and the fewer people he had who were sitting around watching the interview, the more likely it was that remember, the Chief Justice had been a prosecutor in Alameda County for, I think, about 20 years before he became a justice of the Supreme Court. So he knew something about criminal investigations,
Right.
and I think he was correct in not wanting to have Burt Griffin and other people say I wouldn't have been asking the questions, and I think frankly uh, it would have taken the focus away from the Chief Justice.
So I don't know if you were watching this week the hearings on Capitol Hill about MK Ultra. I don't know if you saw that. The CIA mind control.
I haven't been watching that.
Well, there were hearings this week about MK Ultra, which was the CIA's mind control program in the 1950s and 60s. And of course, one of the people who testified believes that Jack Ruby was given LSD by Jolly and West, and that's why he had a psychiatric break because of this drug. And so we'll never know the truth about why he killed Oswald.
Well, I think he did admit that he was taking some kind of drug.
Yeah,
I
he was
don't
taking
know.
like a diet. He had a diet pills and some sort of
Yeah,
I don't know, amphetamine or something like that.
uh, whether it was a particular drug that was testified to before the Congress, I don't think anybody knows.
But this whole idea of mind control is just
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
right, right.
Um,
Well, we know that from moment number one, when Ruby heard that the president had been shot, uh, he became the first conspiracy investigator.
right,
He,
yes.
he was out to find a conspiracy that blamed Jews for the assassinations.
Yeah, he went to Bernard Weissman's post office box
Right,
and he was taking pictures of that and he took pictures of the impeach Earl Warren signs
right.
with his helper Larry Crawford.
Absolutely right. So, I mean, he did a lot of investigative work on his own.
Larry Crawford, as you know, didn't waste any time and he left Dallas to go visit his sister in Michigan. Um, and now there are some people who claim that he was the man who killed Tippit. What did you make of Larry
well,
Crawford?
well, incidentally, I didn't know that was his pronunciation.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I pronounced it. I've been pronouncing it Crayford,
Yeah, you might
but
be right. I'm sorry. I really don't know.
that's okay. It's Crafard.
So
Well, I'll tell you, my concern was that Ruby was acting so strangely from Crayford's standpoint that he felt it was in his Crayford's best interest uh, to get out of
right.
Dallas. But that's total speculation on my part. Uh,
There were not actually a number of people who decided to get out of Dallas for a few days, like Breck Wall.
yes,
Um, he went to Galveston, and of course Ruby called him late night, and of course the conspiracy theorists say that's when Ruby called him to go, do something for David Ferry. I mean, it's just crazy.
yes.
So all this conspiracy stuff, what did you think in the 1960s, in 1966, 67, and 68, when Mark Lane and Sylvia Marr and Harold Weisberg were coming out with all these books? What did you think about all of that?
They were trying to make money, and
Right?
they,
Yeah.
and they could make more money by promoting the idea of a conspiracy than by saying that the Warren Commission got it right.
Right. But were you distressed, or did it, how were you really bothered, or what, I mean, it, these people were really ended up actually doing a lot of damage
They,
in
they
really
really did.
in really spreading conspiracy theories.
Initially, uh, I wasn't troubled by it, but understand this conspiracy business uh, theorizing has been going on for 50 years now.
Yep.
and and what greatly bothers me is that so many people in this country are unable to think analytically about uh, what happened uh, in the period when uh, Kennedy was shot. And and, and, and once you establish, in my mind, once you establish that Oswald was the one who shot Kennedy, then the question is, why did Oswald shoot Kennedy? What was going on in his life? And 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 and, and it's amazing to me how little the conspiracy theorists want to know about who Oswald was. And that's what I say at the end of my own book, is that historians should stop themselves trying to be conspiracy theorists and should be looking at accept the fact that Oswald was the shooter, and then look carefully at who Oswald was and what was happening in his life and how the political environment that was existing in the United States affected Oswald.
Yeah, no, very true. And I'm astounded that so many of the conspiracy people look at Oswald and they say, well, he wasn't on the left. He wasn't a Marxist. It was all fake. It was all part of an act, right? And
well,
I mean, I mean that's what they
well,
do, and
yeah,
because they can't come to grips with
yeah.
with
Well, why did he go to Russia? You
yeah,
know,
well, he was a fake defector, right? He wasn't a real
yeah.
defector. They have to make these things up because otherwise they can't explain it. I mean,
Well, well,
Sylvia Marr's book. I mean, can you
yes.
imagine? She indexed the 26 volumes, and her view is that Oswald was completely innocent.
Oh, God.
How do you do
Fred,
that?
Fred, let me turn the question back to you.
Right.
You as an early reader, maybe even pre-teenage, uh, 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 was a conspiracy believer. You
Yep.
changed your mind.
Yep.
What, what caused you to change your mind?
I was sort of lucky. uh, in the early, it was only I was 18 when I started to get interested in this because I just wasn't of the age to be interested earlier. But right from the start, I was lucky in that in my research, I came across Cyril Weck's first articles where he said all the shots
Yeah,
came from behind.
right.
And so then I never really believed in a shot from the front. And fortunately, I mean, I read David Bellin's book, You Are the
Yes.
Jury. And so I knew right from the start that Oswald was certainly involved, although I was skeptical of the single bullet theory. And it was the HSCA when I saw the trajectory diagrams of the HSCA and that the single bullet theory works. It completely works. I was completely floored because I had never
Yeah.
seen those type of diagrams.
And
And
let me say something about Bellin.
yeah,
Uh, David wanted to find a conspiracy.
right.
There was one point in our investigation where he was, I think, in the process of telling his wife that he had found a conspiracy. So, so it wasn't. And let me say that Bellin was one of the very bright people that we had on the staff.
Yeah, and he was one of the people who was really out there defending the Warren Commission back in the 1970s and 80s, particularly after Oliver Stone's film came
Yes.
out. What upsets me the most, again, is this. Paul Hoke and I, we talk about conspiracism, and the fact that now it's there's all these massive conspiracies um, everywhere, and conspiracies of intelligence agencies and conspiracies of you name it, and you know it's everything is analyzed or thought of as a massive conspiracy. You know, Jefferson Morley in it talking about
Yes.
all the stuff, and I think it does a lot of damage to the way people the lack of critical thinking in the country.
Well, let me say that uh, there has been uh, a certain amount of significant concealment of information. We know, for example, that FBI agent Hosty, if I pronounce his name correctly, uh, uh, he did not uh, tell the Warren Commission that Oswald had had come to try to find him. And why didn't he tell them? Not because Agent Hosey was part of some conspiracy, but because he was afraid of his boss in Washington, J. Edgar Hoover, and what kind of criticism he would get and whether he'd lose his job for that. But people want to turn him into some kind of conspirators. The same thing is true of the CIA, and they're not telling the Warren Commission that they had a plan afoot to assassinate Fidel Castro.
Yep.
Uh, they had a motive to lie, but it wasn't a motive about conspiracy. It was a motive to protect their own jobs for completely understandable reasons.
Yeah, I think Paul Hoke. By the way, Paul Hoke sends his regards. Uh,
Thank you very much.
he's a
And my
brilliant
thanks to
man.
him.
He is absolutely a
Yes.
brilliant man. But he was the one who wrote that, you know, there were all these cover-ups. The FBI was covering up, the CIA was covering up, not a conspiracy, but with all the covering up, it sort of looks, maybe it looks like a conspiracy. The other thing about covering up was RFK didn't tell the Warren Commission about the plots either.
Right. Right.
And that it's funny because a lot of people will talk about the CIA not saying anything, but RFK could have said something and he didn't.
And Alan Dulles.
Alan Dulles, yeah,
This was obviously a major international issue, which they really believed that they were protecting the national interest by concealing it. But the worst thing that we should understand, the worst thing that that government employees should understand is that they must tell the truth. That that line for whatever self-interest they think they, whether it's to protect their jobs from their boss or whether they think they're protecting the national security, it cannot be concealed. And I'm not sure what we would have done if we had been told these things that were concealed from us. Uh, but but I know it was very damaging to public credibility that now the public believes that the crucial people who were conducting part of the investigation were liars.
Yeah, I mean, it would not have affected the fact that Oswald did kill Kennedy. I mean, that was certainly true. You would have asked a few more questions and gotten a few more documents, but it wouldn't have changed the outcome of your thinking. But the other big slander, I mean, at the time and now is the fact that all the Warren commissioners, the Warren Commission staff, all were lying about the evidence in the case. That everybody would lie to protect the national interest.
I'm not sure what you just said.
Well, you know, well, all you had the Warren commissioners, you had all the staff, people like you. Um, the thought that everybody was engaged in sort of lying to protect the national interest was sort of crazy. The fact that you would all not want to tell the truth about what happened.
Well, all I can say again was that at our first staff meeting, Chief Justice Warren said that our goal was to find the truth. I do think it's a further question as to once you find an element of truth that's embarrassing, what do you do about that? How do you reveal it? And that is a very serious question because
Yep.
there was no, let me say there was no justification for Hosty not telling us that Oswald had come to meet with him. The CIA probably had a justification for not wanting to publicly disclose that it was trying to assassinate Castro. However, it had to tell the principal investigators, it had to tell Chief Justice Warren and J. Lee Rankin, and I'm satisfied that neither Rankin nor Warren knew that the CIA was doing that.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. But it was a tough one. You know, and I'm sure RFK must have thought hard about whether there was some sort of blowback from his policies, his own policies, against Castro in the 1960s.
Yeah, and in today's world, we now have an administration in Washington in which there is widespread belief that everybody lies, and there are enough clear falsehoods being communicated to the public that the public may understandably believe that everybody lies. But my hope is that there are some of us left who believe in telling the truth.
Yeah, I hope so too. And that leads to one of my last questions for you. And it's a question that's been on my mind for a long time that I see all over the news. And the question is, did the Jews kill JFK? Can you
Yeah,
tell us
well,
the truth about that?
the Jews did not kill JFK.
I mean, I unfortunately I see that, you know, all over the place,
Yes,
you sort of the anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism of the time. It just every day I go on the boards and I see this, and
yes.
it's very disturbing that people will say that, and I don't know what to do about it. I try my best, but it's fighting sometimes a losing battle.
Well, it's we've gone back in 1963. The idea, myself and as the Chief Justice said, the Chief Justice himself, the idea was to tell the truth. I'm not sure that we're not back in a period that's more like the 1890s, really. And when I think about anti-Semitism in my childhood, it was serious. And it was not simply anti-Semitism; it was anti-Catholicism. And so now we've come back to a period of time where we suspect everybody who has not been born in this country, you know, and we know that that's the people who were not born in this country who have built the country.
Yep. No, it's very troubling times. I strongly suggest that anybody interested in the JFK assassination actually read the Warren Report. It's a very, very good starting place, and so few people have actually read it.
I have mixed feelings about that.
Okay.
Uh, and yes, I would like everyone to read the Warren Commission report, but it's over 800 pages. People don't read 800-page
No,
books.
that's true.
So what can someone read that's uh, a an informative uh, and an honest book? And I think David Bellin's book is one of them.
Well, David Bellin's book was good, and I think he always wanted to put in a lot of testimony, and so I think he wanted the Warren Commission report to have a lot of testimony, and so he got
Yes,
testimony in. I mean,
yes,
certainly at least A Case Closed by Gerald Posner is a good shorter book, I think, as well.
yes. And I think the Fred Litwin books are good.
Yeah, they're not
So
bad. They're not bad. Right now, I'm working on another book. It's going to be a history of conspiracy thinking in the JFK assassination. So I'm going to chronologically go through, the origins of all the conspiracy nonsense out there, and I'm finding out a lot of really interesting stuff. So it's a fun book to research, and I unfortunately I have to reread all of the books from the 1960s.
oh boy.
So I had to reread Lane's book and Epstein's book, and it's impossible to read Weisberg's book because you can't read his English. but I read Popkin again. I mean, it's somewhat discouraging. So, well, look, thank you very much. I really thank you for your incredible contribution to the truth about what happened to JFK, and your incredibly hard work, and your excellent book as well. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So I really appreciate it. So, yeah, take care and thank you.